This is what I hate, okay? This guy literally comes here and saying, my guy loves America, your guy hates America. But like, even though we're doing the best in the G7 right now, in terms of inflation and GDP growth, lowest inflation in the G7, highest GDP growth in the G7, this guy can't even be fucking patriotic, okay? He should be extremely fucking patriotic that we're doing this well, but he's not, because he does hate America, okay?
In terms of like, what would you do if you wanted to make the country worse? I mean, I can think of several things. I would encourage my supporters to lead an insurrection on the Capitol. I would try to say that the election results weren't real. I would claim that the election was fake before even coming into office, which he did before his first term.
We have the lowest unemployment for minorities in the United States since record keeping.
We have the lowest that we've been under 4% unemployment for like 2 years at this point.
Cannot handle a $500 emergency. They don't have.
He's quoting the thing. He's quoting the bullshit Fed study. He's quoting the study right now. That's not what the study says, guys. He should be proud that American workers have the highest disposable income in the world and are doing way better than every other fucking country. But he doesn't care because he hates America. Because the guy he likes isn't winning right now, so he does hate America.
Wouldn't it be easier to just erect the physical barrier that prevents people from going into this country except at a port of entry?
No, it wouldn't do anything. This is the frustrating thing.
It's so funny to me that he was like, the left is chanting from the river to the sea, and then literally in the next sentence quoted Sam Harris. Does he think Sam Harris is supporting from the river to the sea?
Gentlemen, welcome to the debate. Seb, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, we want to focus exclusively on the election that's upcoming. And one of the things we agreed before is that both of you get a chance to set out a positive case for your candidate, something that we never hear anymore because everyone just criticizes the other person. So given that Biden is the incumbent, Stephen, do you want to start us off?
Yeah.
Why is he good?
I think that Biden is a good president because I think that he's shown that he's willing to defend and strengthen our institutions. I think that the United States is only as strong as the institutions that we have. You can have parchment guarantees from constitutions that say you're afforded X, Y, Z rights, or you're guaranteed in the United States to be able to do some particular things. But at the end of the day, if we don't have a government telling you that the food is safe, or this medicine is safe, or your car's not going to explode at the end of the day, I think that none of those things actually matter. The parchment guarantees. So the second thing is I think Biden has done a really good job at being able to actually bring different people in Congress together to pass legislation. I think that bipartisanship is really important right now, considering how divided we are. You've got things that Trump said about infrastructure for 4 years that never got done. The closest we got to infrastructure building in the United States under Trump are tariffs, which are basically just taxes on our own citizens, whereas Biden was able to pass the IRA and the CHIPS Act, which both have like fostered a ton of new manufacturing that's been happening in the United States, which I think is really cool because we're finally building stuff again. And then I think that the foreign policy under Biden, I think that our aims right now are a lot more noble than they were under Trump. I think that regardless of your feelings, our participation with supporting Ukraine against Russia or supporting Israel against the situation in the Middle East is a lot more defensible than endless drone wars that we're trying to hide in Yemen, fighting in Syria, whatever other, the photo opportunities with North Korea, the back and forth with Iran, whatever kind of like mixed bag of undermining the United States Trump was involved in when it came to U.S. foreign policy under him. So
what's your case for Trump?
He loves America. He doesn't hate America. It's really that
Oh
simple.
my fucking God. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, I'm gonna oh my God. How is that the one thing he points to? Dude. It actually, everything is just culture war, fucking brain rot now. It's just, oh my God. My guy loves America more than your guy loves America. Oh my God. You can't actually point to any, maybe he'll make up for it. Maybe he'll actually point to policies, but oh my God, he literally is a fucking child. My guy loves America more than your guy loves America. I'm gonna.
He understands the institutions are either broken or corrupt. And he's not a member of the political elite. He wasn't in politics for 47 years like the current incumbent in the White House. He is not part of the quote-unquote political elite that clearly...
True. How did draining the swamp go? Draining the swamp go in his first term, by the way.
Tests our nation and Judeo-Christian civilization. There's a reason that working-class Americans from across the nation voted for him in 2016. There's a reason that recently in Harlem, we saw what? We saw a black 10-year-old child chant out, "We love you, Trump," which was then picked
Wow, proof.
up by all the adults around that young boy because they see in that man authenticity. He's not a machine.
That is it. That is true. Actually, this guy is British. He should not be allowed to comment.
Career politician. He's not somebody with 21 shell companies funneling money from communist China, Russia, Ukraine into his son's dodgy dealings and then into the Biden family. He has authenticity and he loves America. The first time I met him, I've told this story on your show previously.
I do not know. The positive case for Trump is apparently is just talking about Hunter Biden now. Oh my God!
And is it really true that like the Biden and the people around him hate America I mean, isn't that an extraordinary claim to make, Seb?
It is. It's kind of perverse. But if you look at everything they've done for the last 3.5 years, answer the question thusly. What else would you do for 3.5 years if your ostensible goal was actually to destroy America? What would you do differently? Nothing. You'd open the borders. You'd give billions of dollars to the greatest state-sponsored terrorism in the world, Iran, that every Friday tries.
Okay, oh my god. Destiny should just respond with the worst for his accident when it's silly that is accurate. Yeah. Oh my god. You know what? I'm glad Destiny did all the research in immigration. I feel like he's hopefully going to do pretty good on the immigration stuff now.
Chance of death to America. You'd undermine our relationship with our closest ally in the Middle East, Israel. Stop sending them the weapons they need to save themselves from the bloodthirsty jihadists that killed more Jews than we've ever seen since the end of the show, at the end of the Holocaust. You'd make it harder for Americans to...
Dude, you know what I love now? It's 50-50 whether a conservative is going to be anti-Israel or pro-Israel now. It is just 50-50 because they're like, there are a significant number of conservatives that don't like Israel now and are just totally anti-establishment. And because the establishment supports Israel, they're just totally anti-Israel. And they're like, why are we sending billions of dollars to Israel who just kills children? It's actually 50-50.
You ban the XL Keystone Pipeline extension. You say no more fracking, no more energy exploration on federal lands. And what do we have? We go from $1.80 a gallon of petrol to now we have in California $6. When you're a man who lives...
I can't. I hope that, and that's going to probably bring it up, but just so we're clear, Biden, against pressure from progressives, Biden approved a lot of drilling and Biden approved a lot of fracking. Biden is responsible for why the U.S. is now producing more oil than any country in the history of the world. We are producing more oil now than any country ever has in the history of God's green earth, okay? But he's not going to mention that. He's going to mention that for a brief period. Yeah, we did see gas prices go up.
On how much it costs
I heard worshiping
a
is a
full tank of
profit
gas
base.
in your car. If you're a worker, if you're a plumber, if you're a carpenter, you've crushed tens of millions of people. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Sebastian. Listen to Biden's former boss. 5 days before he became president, he said, we are going to fundamentally change this nation. I know you're a married man, Konstantin. Mm-hmm. Don't tell your wife you want to fundamentally change her because she won't believe you love her. You'll be on the couch or in the doghouse, okay? You don't love that which you wish to fundamentally change. And that's what the left has become.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with almost every part. I think that I don't think Trump loves America. I think it's pretty obvious that Trump loves himself. I think even Trump fans will admit that Trump is more in love with himself than any other individual entity that exists on this planet. I always think it's really funny. I think one of the most interesting things that happened with conservatives is this idea that they found a common man who's not a part of the elite to champion their causes, and it happens to be a billionaire real estate mogul from New York City that was essentially born with a silver spoon. I think that's incredibly interesting. I think it's interesting that people are so critical about Hunter Biden when Kushner is signing multi-billion-dollar deals with Saudi Arabia, when Kushner was working in...
Hold on, but that's whataboutism, right? That's not, like, Hunter Biden could be a bad guy and Jared Kushner could be doing whatever you say he's doing. Does it not?
Sure, I'm not. It's not a whataboutism because it's not a defense of Hunter. I think it's more remarking that it's interesting what conservatives that are fans of Trump are selectively skeptical of. That if Biden had created a position in the White House for his son Hunter to work under, and then he had sent his son to go and negotiate on behalf of the United States, and then afterwards his son was signing multi-billion-dollar deals for companies that he worked with, this is like Burisma, but 100 million times worse because it's in the official capacity as a government worker while being related to a president who didn't divest.
I guess all I'm saying. Sorry to interject. I really want to get the time.
Also, Hunter Biden's just cool. Okay. Jared Kushner is some corrupt douchebag. Hunter Biden has a big cock. He slides down water slides naked with prostitutes. He does cocaine. Hunter Biden's cool as fuck. Jared Kushner is just some rich nerdy kid. Okay. Hunter Biden is rad, dude.
In terms of like, what would you do if you wanted to make the country worse? I mean, I can think of several things. I would encourage my supporters to lead an insurrection on the Capitol. I would try to say that the election results weren't real. I would claim that the election was fake before even coming into office, which he did before his first term. I'd probably start to gain notoriety or popularity in the political world by suggesting that the current president was born in Kenya, not the United States. A lot of people forget, but that's how Trump initially picked up his popularity. It was with the birth certificate stuff with Barack Obama. I think that when you talk about like wanting to fundamentally change this country, I don't think Biden wants to do that. I think Biden genuinely loves the United States. I look at somebody like Donald Trump who undermines basically every single part of this country, whether it's the legal and judicial system, whether it's trust in the voting.
Also, Donald Trump's slogan is "Make America Great Again." I don't know how I didn't think of that until now. His message right now is that he wants to make America great again, which kind of suggests that he doesn't love the country right now. Kind of suggests that he does want to change the country into something he does love, to make it great again, which implies that it's not great now. I don't know how I didn't realize that until now, but yeah.
process, whether it's NATO, whether it's U.S. Impressions or the U.S. reputation abroad. I think that Trump fundamentally has no respect for any part of this country. That's why he suggested suspending the Constitution so that he could look for voter fraud. It's why before getting elected, he said that people that burn the flag are one of our most important First Amendment protected rights, should have their citizenship stripped from them, which is insane. And I would also probably try to undermine the current sitting president and the current sitting Congress by telling them that they're not allowed to get things done on the border, because if we keep that as a real problem, it'll help me in the next election cycle, which is why we weren't able to pass any bipartisan border legislation to actually fix the asylum problem that we have right now, that the current government's hands are tied on.
Do you have any idea how much energy costs went up under the Trump administration, just for average families?
The president doesn't influence energy costs that much.
He does when he shuts down fracking and all licenses for oil exploration.
It's just against facts. Like, literally, you can look at the data. It is true that energy costs went up, and it is true that Biden did have environmental concerns that probably mildly contributed to energy prices going up. But even against pressure from people in his own party, Biden supported increasing the amount of fracking we did. Biden opened up drilling, and the U.S. now produces more oil than any country in history of the world. This was against pressure from his own party. This is just against facts. Does he just have amnesia about the Willow Project thing? Remember, every fucking progressive was out of their mind about the him breaking his promise on the Willow Project. Like he. It's dumb.
Exploration on federal lands. Don't divert.
U.S. oil production is at an all-time high, so that's
absolutely not true. Not true.
It is. We're energy independent.
What do you mean not true?
Okay, you're making stuff up. Okay.
How
much did energy go up? Do you know, under Trump?
Are we counting the last year under COVID when the entire world was slowing down?
4 years. How much did energy go up? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
4%. Do you know how much it's gone up in the last 3.5 years under Biden?
I'm not sure.
28%. Who's destroying America?
So, but that's also a global trend. Inflation.
What is fucking...
But also, it's a function of what we created. When we were in the Trump administration, for the first time in our history, we were net exporters of energy. Think about what that does for the lifeblood. An economy requires energy. I know it's a scary, evil thing for the
Dad
left,
is doing well,
oil
not losing
and gas
patience
is
with
how
Trump.
you run an economy. It's how you get food to people. So when we became the first time ever a net exporter,
I know this is what also drives me crazy, is that it's obviously a global thing, and we're doing the best out of any other fucking country. We have the lowest inflation in the G7 and the highest growth in the G7. And this is what I hate, okay? This guy literally comes here and saying, my guy loves America, your guy hates America. But like, even though we're doing the best in the G7 right now, in terms of inflation and GDP growth, lowest inflation in the G7, highest GDP growth in the G7, this guy can't even be fucking patriotic, okay? He should be extremely fucking patriotic that we're doing this well, but he's not, because he does hate America, okay? He does hate America. All the MAGA people hate America.
Or talk about the other
And he is also British, so his argument's invalid.
aspects of the economy. We have the lowest unemployment for minorities in the United States since record keeping
We have the lowest, we've been under 4% unemployment for like 2 years at this point.
began, and the lowest unemployment for women for 70 years. Look at what we have today. I mean, it's absolute. The fact that most families in the
What do you mean? Like, we've been under 4% unemployment for like 2 years.
cannot handle a $500 emergency. They don't have.
He's quoting the thing. He's quoting the bullshit Fed study. He's quoting the study right now. That's not what the study says, guys. The actual study, it's a survey from the Federal Reserve asking how Americans would choose to cover a $400 emergency expense. Sorry. Another point just came up in my brain because this guy does hate America. Okay, this guy does hate America. The survey asked, how would Americans choose to cover a $400 emergency expense? I think like 63% of people said that they would pay it with cash. Not even all the other options necessarily indicated financial duress, okay? Some of them probably did. Like if you have to sell something to cover a $400 emergency expense, that can indicate financial duress, okay? But not even all the other options indicated financial duress. Secondly, the median American has $8,000 immediately available in transaction accounts, so like checking and savings accounts. And 54% of adults have 3 months of expenses saved, okay? So the median American can absolutely afford that emergency expense, okay? Secondly, this guy does fucking hate America because he doesn't know that. He doesn't care that we have the highest disposable income in the world, okay? He should be proud that American workers have the highest disposable income in the world and are doing way better than every other fucking country. But he doesn't care because he hates America because the guy he likes isn't winning right now, so he does hate America.
$500 worth of cash. That's why Harlem is shouting, "We love you, Trump." I don't know if you saw President Trump after he had to leave the court last week. He delivered pizzas to the firefighters in Manhattan. It's really interesting to watch that video, not just of how he was received by those people who run into fires to save Americans. One of the firefighters actually audibly says in the background, "Save us, Mr. Trump." That doesn't happen if the man's selfish and if the economy is absolutely superb. It happens when you let in 8 million illegals in 3.5 years to crush the working man and woman in America.
Stephen,
Dude, let's I'm very curious. Has this guy read the new and it's NBNR paper, right? About immigration, about how it doesn't actually reduce wages. I wonder if he actually read any of the empirical evidence which shows that immigration doesn't actually reduce wages. It actually has a slightly positive effect in wages. Like every single study basically shows either it's a wash, it doesn't have like any effect, or it has a slightly positive effect on native worker wages. Okay. I wonder if he's read any of that. Even for low-skilled workers, it found a slightly positive effect, I think. Yeah. Significant effect between 1.7 to plus 2.6% of wages, less educated native workers. Even for... This was just one paper. On the whole, yes, immigration can sometimes affect the wages of low-educated native workers in a negative way, but it's like very slight. Okay, it's probably worth the trade-off, but he's not actually going to have that discussion of trade-offs because he doesn't know shit about economics. He's just going to blame immigrants. Okay, I bet he hasn't read anything about how immigrants have gotten more jobs than ever and how foreign-born workers were essential to our recovery from COVID. He doesn't know any of that shit, or if he does, what he's going to say about it is foreign-born workers are taking our jobs. Because if you look. In COVID, like a bunch of boomers retired, okay? So like the amount of native-born workers that have had jobs since COVID is basically flatlined. It's basically remained stable. But foreign-born workers their employment has exploded. That was essential for our COVID recovery. It was really good that they were all getting jobs and helping our economy. But all he's going to say, he either doesn't know that, or he's going to say, this is proof that they're taking our jobs, when it's both of those are bullshit, okay?
Why would you want to re-elect a man who has allowed this many illegal immigrants in, despite the fact that I think it's fair to say the vast majority of Americans agree that this shouldn't be happening?
I think that when it comes to border stuff or immigration stuff, I think that most of the disagreement, I think for America, I think we generally agree on most things for what the immigration policy should look like. The problem is we have a very unique problem right now, the border relating to asylum seeking, and the federal government's hands are tied in terms of how you can deal with those people. So with the way that the law works right now, if you're an illegal immigrant and you come up to the border, you see that like the encounters have gone up dramatically. Well, so is the actual catch rate of people coming in. Like, not that many people are sneaking past the border guards. The reason why is because you don't have to actually sneak into the country anymore. You just have to show up between a port of entry, or maybe even at a port of entry now, and go, hey, I'm here to seek asylum. And once you've done that, it's like a get out of jail free card. And they have to take you in. They have to process you because of how the federal laws on the books are right now. And then because we don't have enough judges to actually go through all the cases, you're given basically a slip. You're saying, hey, please show up for your trial. And then you basically release them into the country. Some people will try to say that like Biden does catch and release, or we have like a catch and release law. But we don't really. It's like a combination of pretty complicated things on the books for how we deal with asylum seekers. Now, Biden and the Democrats in Congress wanted to deal with this, but Trump was literally telling Republicans in Congress, do not touch the border issue. That's why the bipartisan bill that Republicans had largely approved of a few years earlier got completely shut down because Republicans don't want to close this issue. Again, in classic Trump fashion, which is putting Trump ahead of the country, we didn't do anything about the border because Trump was telling Republicans not to fix a particular issue because he wants to win re-election. That's an issue that Biden and the Democrats tried to solve, but we couldn't do it.
Look, I want to hear Seb's...
Also, just as another note, I'm pretty sure the percentage of immigrants deported has actually increased under Biden. The Cato Institute has a few different studies on that. Where like of the percent, because there's more illegal immigrants now, so the total is higher. But as a percent, I think Biden has turned away more illegal immigrants than Trump did.
Answer to that and other things you're about to say, but just I can tell you look, I was born in the former Soviet Union. I don't live in America. I can promise you, this unique set of circumstances that you're talking about, like every other country in the world, pretty much except Western Europe, is able to have a border, right? You can't just turn up to the border of Russia or China and like walk in and then be like, oh, can I please? That's not how it works. It's not, look, the idea that a country has a border has not been controversial for very long. This is a very new thing. And the fact that the number of people has skyrocketed since President Biden was elected, you can't put that on the Republicans.
I'm not putting anything.
Hold on, real quick. In the 2 years before Mr. Biden took off, the Trump administration released nearly 713,000 immigrants, or a little over 52% of the 1.4 million crossers. In other words, Mr. Trump policies returned far fewer removals in absolute terms and a slightly higher percentage of Mr. Biden's. of release border crosses are Mr. Biden's. Yeah.
On the Republicans. What I'm saying is what I'm putting on them is the refusal to fix the actual issue, which is passing legislation to do it. And the last huge bipartisan bill that died in the House was supposed to increase the amount of judges we have to work through asylum seekers. It was supposed to change the standards that we would use to evaluate people claiming asylum. And it would have increased funding basically for every part of the
Wouldn't it be
security.
easier to just erect the physical barrier that prevents people from going into this country except at a port of entry?
No, it wouldn't do anything. This is the frustrating thing, because the issue is what I said. The issue, if you look at the vast majority of people that are coming in, and you talk about things like catch and release, it's asylum seekers. These are laws on the books that have to change. You can go to a border right now as an illegal immigrant and just like, hey, I'm like claiming asylum. Can I come in?
Nothing to do with laws.
And then that's the issue that you have when you're trying to deal with our current immigration issue is the asylum seeking process. Conservatives love to bring up the lowest unemployment for minorities under Trump and blah, blah, blah. We have the lowest unemployment for minorities right now under Biden. The idea that you would look at unemployment and use that as like a win for Trump when unemployment under Biden has been the lowest that it has been in all of U.S. history. And it's after rebuilding an economy, not like soaring ahead of like historically low interest rates year after year after year, which kind of led into a lot of the issues that we experienced with inflation and having to tighten up interest rates and everything. The economy under Biden has done exceedingly well. It'd be nice if we had a Democrat come into office.
And we brought inflation down without increasing unemployment that much. It's increased a tiny bit, but like, we've maintained under 4% on inflation, or under 4% unemployment, while bringing inflation down. That is incredibly impressive. Actually, it's not entirely impressive because a lot of the inflation is supply side, so it doesn't actually have to do with employment. Which is another thing conservatives don't like to bring up, is that a lot of the inflation was supply side, but still.
In preparation for today, I called up the former Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, and I asked him, what is the situation like? Let's just talk about one statistic, because 8 million illegals, it's hard to even fathom.
Dude, oh my God, he's not gonna address like any of the points. He spat out that one lie about him being a fake Republican or whatever, and then now he's not gonna actually address the point. He's just gonna ramble about. He's just gonna fearmonger about what his friend is saying is going on at the border right now. Okay, let's let him. In the
last 3.5 years, they have intercepted 47,000 felons at the border. These are criminals coming into America. That is a 99% increase over our 4 years in government. Let's just say 100% increase. Besides that, they found 160,000 felons, convicted felons, in America, including 4,700 murderers and 8,000 gang members, one of whom murdered a beautiful 22-year-old nursing student called Laken Riley in Georgia, a man who...
And Biden mispronounced her name and still hasn't apologized. Jeez, oh my God, it's actually... Oh my God, he's not going to address anything. He's just going to fearmonger.
Murdered her after he was asyleed into America by Joe Biden's system, was then arrested for endangerment of a minor in New York, and Alvin Bragg, the Democrat DA of New York, led him onto the street so he could murder this 22-year-old. Let's be clear. They created this. You're right. It's policy decisions. Because they are so bigoted and so racist. Remember, this is the Democrat Party, the party of the KKK, the party of the Jim Crow laws. This is the party that whose activist murdered the first Republican president, Lincoln, the great emancipator. This is the DNA of the Democrats. The Democrats are so fundamentally bigoted. They believe if we let in millions of illegals because they're brown-skinned, because they're black-skinned, when we amnesty them and give them naturalization and citizenship, they will vote for us because of their skin color. This is CRT at its core, critical race theory, and that's why they're doing it. This isn't an accident. You don't open the borders an accident. You know that. And this isn't because of humanitarian stuff. Let's talk about why it's happening technically and why he is the largest human
Finish the
trafficker.
point and I want to say something.
How do these people come into America? Do you know what CBP-1 is, Stephen? CBP-1 is the app that illegals download on their way to America. It's funded by you and me, American taxpayers. They're sitting in Mexico. They're sitting in the Dominican Republic. They're sitting in Afghanistan. And they download an app where they pre-clear themselves. You tick a box. I am Mickey Mouse and I'm an asylum seeker. When you cross...
Dude, this guy, I don't even... He didn't address like any of the arguments. He said like one bullshit. He said one bullshit thing about the bill that Destiny talked about, and now he's not actually addressing anything. He's just fear-mongering. Democratic Party totally owned the first Republican president because Democrats. True.
The border, you say, hey, I'm registered. And you're
there was also that bullshit point about the Democrats part of the KKK. Yep, we all know, my guy. We all know.
America. That's deliberate, Konstantin. That's not accidental. That's deliberate. And these people aren't political refugees.
Okay. Why didn't you build a wall when you had the chance?
We tried to, and we were stymied consistently. You know what President Trump had to do? This is the insanity. The protestations from the establishment were hysterical. We had to repurpose DOD funds and say the border is actually a national security issue if you've got terrorists coming across the border. We had to repurpose national security funds to build the border and buy the steel to build the wall.
Yeah, in other words, Trump was so bad at enacting policy that he couldn't get his own fucking party to agree to shit. Biden is able to pass massive bipartisan bills, and Trump can't even get his own fucking Congress to agree to a border wall.
The talking points are funny. I think it's really funny. I think if you're listening to this in video form, I think you should rewind because I think Seb accidentally gave away part of the plot. It's funny because you described that border bill and you said that it allows 5,000 illegal immigrants to come in a day. Minimum? Wrong. That was the maximum cap.
No.
One of the issues that we faced. I did, sir. I did read it. Let me finish. I did read it. You should read it as well. No, I did read it. And it's funny because what you said later on was that we were seeing numbers sometimes in excess of 12,000 per day. The reason why that bill was so important, one of the things that would have been nice is it would have actually placed a cap on the amount of people that were coming in and claiming asylum. That 5,000 per day would have said that once we hit this cap, we are not processing anybody else. You could have the most legitimate asylum claim in the world, and we would not allow you into this country, which was already about to be challenged by a ton of legal people around the United States. And I think there were international bodies as well, because whether or not you can cap asylum seekers is still an internationally debated topic, but that is what that legislation seeks to do. If you feel, again, so passionately about the border, why didn't we pass any bipartisan infrastructure or bipartisan immigration legislation? Why did Trump shut it down?
Because you have to have the other side acting in good faith.
You can say that, but you did. If you really truly believe that the other side is at fault, then it seems like you need a candidate besides Trump because Trump wasn't able to get anything done when he was president. You just said it yourself that Trump had to repurpose DOD funds to do it. Trump had a larger margin in Congress. Trump had all three branches of government and accomplished less than Biden did when it came to legislation, when it came to the border, when it came to infrastructure, when it came to foreign policy, when it came to almost every single aspect of running this country. And Trump was the one that came in saying, I'm the business guy. I can bring people together. I can get these things done because I know how to get people to work together. And all I hear from people once Trump left office was, well, the deep state got me and it was the other guys and I couldn't do anything. And I had to take money from the DOD to do it. I couldn't figure anything out and blah, blah, blah. And now that he's out of office, supposedly running for America, despite the fact that what he's really running for is so that he can pardon himself from his crimes and be immune from hopefully state charges. What he's really running for, is to save himself. And that's why he didn't care about the border. That's why he tries to continue the border problems. He wasn't able to fix it when he was in office because he's more concerned with his reputation than actually bringing people together to get anything done. I don't understand how, even if you believe everything that you said, that asylum seeking is an issue, that illegal immigration is an issue, even if you believe that these are issues that are brought by Democrats intentionally and they're destroying the country, which are all ridiculous claims, Donald Trump is not the guy to fix them because he already proved that he couldn't do it once.
Because prior to that, every chief executive from George Washington to Obama was from the same class. They were either senators, congressmen, governors, or retired four-star generals. Every single one, from George Washington to Obama. Then what did the American people do in 2016? They say, we've had it with the swamp, the establishment, the rhinos, the Democrats. They elect a man who's never run for any office, not county dog catcher, a guy who has no political background, and they say, F you to the establishment, we want him. True. That's actually historic. Now,
and did he drain the swamp? Is the swamp drained? Is this drained swamp in the room with us right now?
It's what the president had to compete with. When we walked into the White House on January 21st, I said this publicly back then, there were less than 20 of us in senior positions like myself who were actually America First and MAGA, right? Because it was an insurgency. It was a political insurgency. The establishment hated President Trump. We had people inside the building who were actively subverting him, even his former chief of staff. That will not happen in a second Trump administration because the president understands what Reagan taught us. Personnel.
Dude, yeah, why were they subverting him? I wonder why. Maybe it's because everything he tried to do was fucking insane. Dude, why would this is him like admitting that Trump, this is borderline him admitting that like Trump is gonna try to steal the election or next year because he's saying the people who stood up to Trump during his first term, for example, they were the threats of like mass resignations when Trump tried to fire certain people. There was Mike Pence refusing to not certify the 2020 election. This is just an admission that that he's not going to let this happen next time. And he's just going to install a bunch of fucking loyalists in the government. Oh my God, he's actually insane. Like, I wonder why people were subverting him. I wonder, like, should Mike Pence have not subverted him? Should Mike Pence have overturned the 2020 election? Is that your position, my guy? Is that your position?
The idea that, even his former chief of staff was against him, like that's a point in favor of Trump. These are your people. You're nominated. How is it that every person that's worked with him, how is it that his former attorney generals, his chiefs of staff, his personal friends, his personal lawyers, when you have this many people around you that are saying to the rest of the world, don't trust this guy. This guy is no good. I don't work with him anymore. I don't trust this guy anymore. Like, at what point do you look at him and you're like, okay, well, maybe it's not actually the deep state, every single institution, all of the media, all of the world, all of academia, and all of the politicians against him. Maybe just kind of like a bad person who's not very good at getting his job done.
This is
it's like also like it literally. This is a problem. Okay, Either Trump made bad appointments or his appointments are right. Those were the two options, okay? Either you have to admit and say Trump chose a bunch of deep state officials as his appointments in his cabinet, or they were somehow corrupted, I guess. Or they're correct and Trump is actually insane. Yeah.
You live in an old...
Trump was never good at business, yeah. Well, he's really good at falsifying records.
And as to this, oh, he's the most divisive. It's so peculiar, but I find it incapable, I find it impossible to remember my former boss giving speeches in front of iconic locales, such as Independence Hall in Philadelphia, bathed in red fascistic light, with Marines standing flanking him, labeling half of America extremists and fascists. And
to be clear, he did it. It's so funny because Biden was so careful during that speech to not upset half of America. He was what I would say was like overly careful. Like I think, like unironically, like his statements were like so like wired in on like specifically like MAGA Republicans. He was like a very small minority of MAGA Republicans in Congress. Like his statements were so fine-tuned to not apply to all Republicans or half the country like he's implying here. Yeah.
Preaching to us about white supremacy in his State of the Union address. That really brings us together. This is the man who told us, Biden said on his inauguration, I'm going to bring you together by calling half the nation white supremacists. When the real racist problem in America are the Democrats on the campuses DEI. Saying death to America from the river to the sea if you're Jewish. That's the left today. Radicals who hate America. I go back to my original point. And then this strange idea of populism, using this label as a smear, some kind of pejorative. I don't know. I remember the good old days where if you had the popular support of the people, that was a good thing. I don't like the elites. They stink. They're corrupt. But a guy comes along who has popular support. No, the elites will decide. Just like Sam Harris destroyed himself on your podcast when he said, I don't care if Hunter Biden had dead children in his basement. The plot against Donald Trump and the election in 2020 was, quote, justified. That's the left.
Bro, what a dude! Top 10 base Sam Harris moment. What the fuck, dude? That was awesome, dude. What did you think, Sam? We should watch that thing he did of Sam Harris because I like Sam Harris. I don't care if
Hunter Biden had dead children in his basement. The plot
that is a top 10 base moment right there. Oh my god!
Against Donald Trump and the election in 2020 was, quote, justified. That's the left. That's the other side. Those are the divisive people.
I want to talk about a couple of things you raised there, which is foreign policy.
Dude, it's so funny that like he's going from like the left is the left are people in America chanting from the river to the sea, death to Israel. Meanwhile, he's talking to Destiny and quoting Sam Harris. Does he think Destiny and Sam Harris are pro-Palestinian? Does he think Destiny and Sam Harris are at all pro-Palestine?
The idea that Trump, a billionaire real estate developer from New York, didn't have friends in the swamp, which is very funny to me. Wasn't this guy? Yeah. Wasn't he literally in pictures of Hillary and Bill Clinton's wedding? I mean, like the idea that
you're living in Manhattan, that doesn't mean you're running a political campaign.
True.
He's a realtor.
Yeah,
he's a
billionaire realtor
who has never run anything in government. How would you know who the good bureaucrat is and the crappy one like Fauci? How would you know that? You're building real estate.
Because real estate.
Do you know a lot? You're in media. Do you know how to create a cable TV show?
I know a decent about I know a decent bit about real estate. And I know that real estate is one of the most tax-advantaged things. I know that real estate has some of the highest integrations with city council planners, with policies.
Who the Secretary of Defense should be?
It's absurd. If he doesn't have any of these ideas, then you're making a very strong argument for career politicians. This is why people that tend to do politics stay in politics, is because they're actually able to know these things.
Yeah,
they understand these things. They have these
relations. We need more of them, Stephen.
Well, considering that Trump, again, failed in every conceivable metric, and you weren't able to give me like any strong things that he actually succeeded in.
The executive
he said
orders.
that he rescinded executive orders. Like, that is a measurable increase. Give me something like the CHIPS Act.
Do you not think that matters, though? I mean, for the people who want to reduce the size of government, that would be
it's a lip service thing. I would encourage everybody that hears. There's two lines that people. There's one really common line that politicians always say. It's politispeak, which is funny that Trump utilized it. But it's this: I'm going to go line by line through the budget. I'm going to go line by line, and I'm going to get rid of all wasteful spending. First of all, this is just fiscal stuff. Okay, this impacts your budget, which, by the way, Trump ran record deficits when he was in office. So budgetarily, he still failed. But this doesn't improve your economy or
dude, he is molding right now. Oh my god,
unleash your economy. It's not like we were rescinding significant executive orders that was destroying our ability to actually succeed. If anything, I would say the most successful business businesses that we had growing in the United States were our tech companies that Republicans are constantly trying to undermine and destroy by getting rid of Section 230, which would make it so you can sue Twitter when somebody posts something on Twitter that I don't like. So no, the idea that that Trump was unleashing the economy by rescinding some irrelevant executive orders that had no impact on the economy anyway, and the fact that he was still running these record level deficits, even though the economy was exploding all 3 years, at least under his presidency, is ridiculous. Oh man, if we want to go foreign policy, Jesus. Almost every single decision that Trump made under foreign policy was either a form of kicking the can down the road or it just did nothing. We talk about like the historic stuff that happened with the Abraham Accords. I'm sorry, but the Abraham Accords started because Netanyahu was on the verge of annexing the West Bank, and the Gulf states were like, this is probably not a good idea, and a lot of people are going to be mad. And then Kushner hopped in, and there were official conversations that were essentially facilitated, and then eventually you start getting these bilateral treaties that are signed between Israel and other countries. But these bilateral treaties did something very important that's happened with other treaties with Israel, and that is that they undermined the Palestinians. They didn't include them in any of the conversations. So when you look at what happened on October 7th, and then you look at Biden, you go, man, this must be Biden's fault. It's like, okay, well, didn't we just have a historic round of talks with countries in the Middle East? How is it that the Palestinians were excluded yet again from these talks? You know, and the idea that Trump was some strong partner in the Middle East when in 2019, Iran literally was shooting drones and missiles over into Saudi Arabian refineries, and the United States stood by and did nothing. Or the idea that we're going to stand here and we're going to say, oh my God, in Afghanistan, we pulled out and we abandoned our people. One, that timetable was sent by Donald Trump. He had a round of talks called the Doha talks that happened with the Taliban, and the Afghanistan government was completely excluded from those talks. When Biden came into office, we'd already been drawn down to historically low numbers in Afghanistan. We had almost no military presence left over there. When Biden came into office, basically the only thing left to do was to follow through on Trump's timetable, which was to pull us out of Afghanistan.
But hold on a second.
Yeah.
Just on that particular thing, didn't you just say that if you're managing a restaurant and your boss comes in and sees a messy table, that's on you? And yet in this situation, you're saying it's Donald Trump's fault, even though it's Joe Biden that did it.
Nice.
It's not nice, and I'll explain why. If you take over,
I'm just trying to be fair.
No, that's fine.
It's
It's a good
you.
question. It's a good
Good for
question. If you take over a restaurant and you are the manager of a restaurant, you bought a business, and somebody comes in and they say, "Hey, I'm going to sit here with me and 20 friends, okay? Because that's what we're going to do." And I go, "Well, no, that's bullshit." And they go, "Well, actually, you bought this restaurant and we signed a contract with your last boss that gave us the right to do this for a year." Well, if you buy a business, generally you also inherit, along with the assets and liabilities, prior agreements you've signed as well, or the previous owner did. With the Doha agreements, we were on a timetable to leave. Now, could Biden have increased the troop presence and fought against that withdrawal? He could have, but then at what cost? Remember, it only takes 1 or 2 attacks against U.S. soldiers by the Taliban to have the United States thinking like, well, shoot, do we need to stay there for another 10 or 20 years? I agree that the pullout could have gone better. I think that there were people that should have had the opportunity to leave that country that worked with us, that should have come out, that didn't get that opportunity. But like compare that to say, because remember, this is done under a Trump timetable. What is Trump's excuse for abandoning the Kurds that we fought alongside in Syria to a Turkish onslaught? There was no excuse for that. There was no reason for that. But he did that with, I don't even know, because he said, well, I don't want to be in the Middle East anymore. And then he obscured all the information relating to Yemen drone strikes that we were helping Saudi Arabia with, as opposed to Biden, who said, we're no longer going to participate in the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen, which was, I think, an improvement. We axed the Iranian.
And Biden, Trump greatly obscured information about even the number of drone strikes we were doing. Whereas Biden, I think, rescinded a lot of those and stopped doing a shit ton of drone strikes. There's the one really good article read, Biden nearly ended the drone war and nobody even noticed. I don't have the graph in here, but he did significantly less drone strikes than Obama, and he basically did none.
A nuclear deal, and then we replaced it with nothing. I guess ostensibly that's supposed to keep Iran from pursuing nuclear weapons. We had historic photographs taken with Kim and our leaders for nothing, I guess. I've heard Sebastian claim in the past that they stopped ballistic missile testing. That's not true. That you can literally go on the Wikipedia and read test after the dates. Pence and I believe Tillerson were both complaining about those talks because literally nothing got done in North Korea. Every part of Donald Trump's foreign policy, it was a disaster. If we want to say that the United States has a weak foreign disposition right now, I think I would probably agree with that.
Okay.
But I don't think it's because of Biden. I think it's because of how divided we are internally. And I think when you look at a country and you see that they're fighting with themselves, okay, well, let's come over here.
I wrote a whole book about that, so I definitely agree with you.
Because when I look at any of these particular issues, and it's easy to kind of paint a story if you just name some things, you don't really dig into them. We talk about Iran, right? And we say, well, October 7th, Iran was bold enough to, do foreign proxy training for troops in Hamas. Okay, well, Iran physically, literally attacked Saudi Arabia under Donald Trump, and nothing happened. So why would we imagine that they wouldn't back Hamas as well? It's not like Trump destroyed.
Also, October 7th happened on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, right? It probably would have happened regardless of who was president. So
it's not about imagination. It didn't happen when.
Well, no, that attack did happen. Iran attacked Saudi Arabia, and Trump didn't.
But October 7th didn't happen.
Sure, but from an Iranian perspective, that attack was bolder than October 7th.
What
Because
about-
I'm constantly like NATO skeptic on the international level. I think a lot of people expressed a lot of fear for that.
Well, he wanted other nations within NATO to contribute their fair share.
Yeah, their military percentage of GDP
which
funding,
they
sure.
were not doing, and he was saying we can't continue with NATO if America is the only country that's actually paying its way.
Sure, but the idea that the leader of NATO would be publicly undermining NATO and saying we might have to pull out or stop it, I think there are more diplomatic ways to pursue those
He never
conversations.
ever once said he was going to pull out forces. You just make stuff up, Stephen. You've got to stop it. Like there was hot fighting
focus
in
on the
Ukraine.
issue. Come on.
No, this is important.
Give us the facts.
Because this
is an area where you can win
this
if
is
you
his
want.
tactics.
So give us the facts.
This is tactics. He just floods the zone with stuff that's false.
Let's address the
Let's
stuff.
talk about it.
Versus him, oh my god, he literally fucking lied about the immigration stuff and about the there was one other thing. God damn it, I was getting fucking pissed at him earlier, but
You'll claim by claim if you want.
Well, that's what I'd like Seb to do.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like Seb to do.
When we were in the White House, and you know this, as opposed to what Obama, after the invasion of Crimea, the jewel of Ukraine stolen, what did Obama do? He sent blankets and night vision devices. If you don't believe me, look up blankets and night vision devices. When we came in, I don't understand this. Stephen's positing that we should have invaded.
I've never said that.
Oh, well, there was land in Ukraine that the Russians controlled, and Trump didn't do anything about it. What, you want intervention? I didn't know you were a neocon, Steve.
Wait, did I say that?
We
Hold on,
got
wait,
into
I might
the
have
White
never-
House,
Did I say that we should invade anybody?
you said that Trump did nothing about the land taken by Russia.
I said that Russia
We
didn't
can
run
go
away
back.
from Crimea. They didn't fear.
And you
Russia
said
doesn't fear
the
Trump.
operations were continuing. Garbage. There were no military operations in Crimea, in Ukraine, or
Crimea
on the
was
border.
captured. The whole thing is military
You said
operations.
there were no military. Constant is right. There was no hot war. You're just making stuff up. When we came into the White House, we deployed Javelin, shoulder-launched anti-tank weapons to Ukraine so they could defend themselves. And for 4 years, it's interesting. The diminutive.
we gave Ukraine a shit ton of javelins. And by the way, Trump threatened to withhold that aid to get information on Hunter Biden. But forget about that for a second. I mean, we have significantly increased our support for Ukraine, I guess, after Russia did invade. Yeah, but like I remember when people were all obsessed with javelins because they were being shipped to Ukraine.
But there are a lot of people on your side who have bought this idea that this is Ukraine. The reason the war in Ukraine happened is that Russia was provoked. It was provoked by the expansion of NATO. It was provoked by the giving of weaponry to.
Oh no, please say he at least has a good Russia-Ukraine take. I don't even care if you blame Biden, but please don't say it was provoked. Please have a good, reasonable Russia-Ukraine take.
To Ukraine. So what would you say to the people who say, well, yeah, Donald Trump gave stuff to the Ukrainians and that's why Russia invaded?
I don't think we need to go down, a kind of a rabbit hole on this. You know my stance. There's me, Dennis Prager, and Klavan and Mark Levin. That's about the three conservatives who are strong on Ukraine. We reject the Tuckerite isolationism, the neo-Buchananite isolationism. But the whole, you're the expert. You're the guy who translates Putin's speeches immediately when they're given. By
the way, isn't Trump pretty isolationist? Like Trump is isolationist, right?
This hoary canard
For the most
that
part.
we encircled Russia, or that U.S. presidents have provoked this great champion of Western, Christendom called Vladimir Putin is asinine. I mean, you know better than anyone. For 22 years since he became premier, Vladimir Putin has been giving speeches on the fact that Ukraine, Poland, the Baltic states are all legitimate and need to be parts of Russia. He's been planning this ever since he, walked into the palace in Moscow.
Can I ask a personal question? I'm curious. Or not personal politics.
Last year, I was introduced to monetary metals.
But don't care. Suck an ad, really? God damn it, guys.
Imagine not only being able to protect your
They're
savings
selling investing in gold.
against inflation,
Crediting interest on
monetary metals.
My mom came from Cuba, and my mom and dad were in the Air Force. When I grew up, my parents hated China and Russia for understandable reasons. My mom flew on the Looking Glass mission, looking for basically nuclear missiles, doomsday, end of the world type stuff. And yeah, the fall of the Soviet Union, the Iron Curtain was a monumentous thing in the world. And it sounds like you have similar feelings about Russia, which I'm happy to hear. Does it bother you, or does it give you pause that so many fans under Donald Trump, that so many people that support him seem to be so either skeptical about supporting Ukraine or fallen in support of Russia because they see them as a stronger, better country that champions Christian values better or doesn't submit to the woke mob better, and that maybe it is their right to own Ukraine and the U.S. provoked that?
It bothers me that there are such voices on the putative conservative right. I have come to the conclusion they're not numerous and they have nothing to do with my former boss. Let me tell you a story about that. We've heard for 7 years still, Hillary was doing it a few days ago, that he loves Putin and Russia collusion. One story. It's so amusing that there are people who are such experts on the Wagner Group now, right after the fake coup. We were experts on the Wagner Group in the Trump administration. We informed President Trump very early on that there are 300 Wagner Group special forces guys running around the Middle East destabilizing the region. We weren't neocons. He's not an interventionist, but he's not an isolationist. He's the perfect balance between the two. And he said, what? Putin's got hundreds of guys running around the Middle East? That's not good. I'm not going to invade the Middle East. I'm not an interventionist. But he told Secretary Mattis, kill them now. 4 hours later, every single member of the Wagner Group Special Forces deployment was red mist. What did Vladimir Putin do? Nothing. He crapped his pants. He didn't even hold a press conference because he was afraid of what President Trump would do next. That's what President Trump understands is the use of force, not intervention, but when you cross a line, when you destabilize regions that are already destabilized enough. In Syria, when we informed him, this is now declassified, that there was a second chemical weapons attack being prepared by the Assad regime, what did he do? While Xi Jinping was having chocolate cake in Mar-a-Lago, he dropped 52 cruise missiles on that airbase and turned it into a sheet of glass and whispered into Xi's ear, I think you should know what I just did in Syria. That was a message for Xi, for Putin, for Kim in North Korea, for the mullahs in Iran. That's why for 4 years, no new wars. I don't understand why you aren't happy that for 4 years we had no new wars under Trump, and now you think you can blame October the 7th on Donald Trump? You can blame the invasion of Ukraine for a second time under a Democrat president on Donald Trump? It's actually an insult to intellect. For 4 years, the world was safe. And now we have a world on fire. But yeah, the guy who's in court today in Manhattan, it's his fault. It's laughable.
Anything you want to say?
Both the situations are just completely and totally misrepresented. The attack on the Syrian airfield, they had advanced warning of that attack. There were no soldiers there. They did chemical weapons. Trump said, we're going to bomb your airport. This is when we're going to bomb. We'll give you a little bit to get out. And then we bombed it, and that was it. That was like business as usual. The idea that was some huge, strong show of force is hilarious.
No chemical weapons were used again.
And the Wagner Group, this operates as a paramilitary organization. Of course, Russia is not going to claim direct responsibility, at least prior to the Ukrainian war, for any activities that they do. That's fine, but Russia's not going to claim, Putin's not going to claim personal responsibility over any of their...
300 Russians being killed.
Of course he's not, because it's the Wagner Group. That's the whole point. Also, the people that were eliminated,
Was that Obama?
The conditions for the wars were being created. But the Wagner Group the Wagner members that were destroyed in the Middle East wasn't Trump saying there's people in the Middle East, let's get them. It was them attacking a U.S. position in Syria and then getting destroyed by U.S. air support.
We didn't have
That's
any
what
wars.
happened.
Constantine, this is exactly what I feared would happen.
Oh my God.
Is Alice in Wonderland, through the looking glass. Donald Trump is not responsible for anything good he did for 4 years, and all the awful things that happened in the last 3.5, those are his culpability. It's insanity. It beggars critical thought.
Okay. I think that we would just real quick, just on one thing, okay? Because it's frustrating because the analysis is childlike to defend Trump, right? Well, there were no wars, right? Wars don't just come out of nowhere. There's a buildup for how these things happen. So we've talked very specifically just on one event. Also, keep in mind, when you say I don't want to go into the weeds or get into a rabbit hole, it feels like it's because you know you're wrong if you actually get into the details of things. When you look at October 7th, what are things that Donald Trump did to signal how October 7th would have gone? Well, when Iran attacked Saudi Arabia, he did nothing. He showed strong support for Israel by moving the embassy to Jerusalem, and we signed the Abraham Accords, which were bilateral negotiations between Israel and other Arab countries that didn't involve the Palestinians whatsoever. How do you not look at these things?
Base pro-Palestinian destiny here.
Wow. These are creating conditions that are relating to October 7th. These are the types of things that lead to that type of violence.
This is actually disgusting. This is dishonorable.
It's a lot of adjectives. Where are the facts?
No, stop it for a moment, okay? Just stop it, because you've just blamed President Trump for October the 7th.
I did not blame Trump for October
stop
the
it.
7th.
I'm going to respond now, because this is your debating tactic.
It's not a
You're
tactic.
like an
I'm just talking
ADHD
facts.
version of Ben Shapiro. You throw out stuff out there, and then it's all garbage. But beneath it is actual venomous illogic.
Is that what history is? Venomous, illogical?
Will you just shut up for 2 minutes?
Seb, hold on a sec. First of all,
let me respond to him.
You haven't responded to a single point
Guys,
Seb.
both of you stop right now. First of all, Seb, you got to stop insulting him. Secondly, when he was talking, you were interrupting a lot. I tried to stop you. Now you were talking, he's interrupting a lot.
So let me interrupt.
So what I'd like for both of you to do is just make your points in a slightly calmer and more respectful way. Go ahead.
Right, so what he just did is he said the conditions for the largest slaughter of Jews since 1945 were created by President Trump. That's horrific. That's almost...
Stephen, chill
Okay.
for a second,
All
both
right.
of you. Seb, go ahead.
It's almost like a blood libel. It's really, the fact that this man... Let me talk to you about who Donald Trump is. For 23 years, swamp politicians of left and right broke a promise to Israel. Bill Clinton said, I'm going to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of the Jewish state, and I'm going to move our embassy. Because of that statute, every 6 months for 23 years, the incumbent president, Clinton, Obama, and Bush, had to send a diplomatic missive to Jerusalem saying, sorry, I know we promised this, but we're not doing it now.
Why would we do it when Israel's doing shit we don't support in the fucking West Bank? Actually, we kind of support the settlement sometimes, but I don't understand why we would give Israel this win for nothing. I mean, if it came as part of some bilateral agreement, it's like, hey, stop the fucking settlement, stop doing this wacky fucking shit you do. Okay, and then we'll recognize the embassy in Jerusalem. Okay, that'd be chill. Okay, whatever. But Trump did it for nothing. He did it for nothing.
When my former boss was chosen by 63 million Americans to be the chief executive, he said, I'm doing this. By the way, a man whose daughter is Jewish, whose grandchildren are Jewish. He held a meeting of the National Security Council at principals level, not the bureaucrats, but the actual cabinet members. And he told them all, I'm moving the embassy and I'm recognizing Jerusalem. Only 3 members of his cabinet, shockingly, supported him. And his Secretary of Defense, this man who had very carefully built his reputation as Mad Dog Mattis, was petrified and told the president, Mr. President, don't do this. You will ignite World War III, and I don't have enough Marines to protect our embassies. What was the president's response? He said, I'm doing this for 3 reasons, Jim. Number 1, I promised the people of America who elected me during the campaign. Number 2, for 23 years, we've told the Israelis we're going to do this and we haven't. We have dishonored our oath. And 3, it's the right thing to do, Jim. We moved the embassy and
The right
no
thing to do.
bombings, no slaughter of women at pop concerts in the desert, no men being beheaded with blunt garden hose. I watched the unedited video of what happened on October the 7th. Strangely, none of that happened. But when Joe Biden comes in, surrenders Afghanistan, and Ukraine is invaded, then suddenly we have 1,300 Jews massacred. No, it's not Donald Trump's fault that he recognized Jerusalem, moved our embassy. It's because nobody fears the senile old man in the White House who talks to dead people.
Okay. October 7th happened on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. I would assume that was when they were always going to do it. I don't know.
And thinks his wife is his sister. That's why the world is on fire. And don't you dare blame President Trump for what happened on October the 7th, because that is despicable and you know it.
Which is definitely what Destiny did.
There's other stuff I want to ask you about, but I feel like you should have a right to respond if you want to.
Yeah, there's no substantive analysis. I mean, it's a bunch of virtue signaling. It's a bunch of, how dare you? I saw the videos and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is Donald Trump was an idiot when it came to foreign policy. He didn't understand the intricacies of any of the situations that he nor his administration were involved in. And a lot of the stuff that he did during his presidency was kind of a build-up to the frustrations that would obviously come out on October 7th and that horrible terrorist attack. It's funny that you were even slightly prescient without realizing it by saying that, like, well, if we move the embassy, there's going to be World War III. Yeah, moving the embassy and showing that kind of support for Israel while they're continuing to kick people out of neighborhoods in East Jerusalem, while the rest of the Arab world is having this huge separation between what their people think, because a lot of Arabs aren't really happy with Israel, but the leadership is kind of like done with the conflict and they want to move on. But it's continuing to antagonize those types of things. It's the Abraham Accords, again, these completely cut out the Palestinians from any of the conversation whatsoever. Donald Trump was a man who loved cheap victories. The idea that I could get bilateral peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia, who for all intents and purposes had already basically normalized like conversations with each other.
You don't think it was historic?
No. The Abraham Accords? No, absolutely not. The impetus for the Abraham Accords was...
I love the pro-Palestinian destiny here, guys. He's so based.
Look at what's going on in Palestine. There's a big part of the West Bank called Area C that Israel is holding on to, and Netanyahu was essentially signaling that he was about to start to formally annex parts of these. So they formally annexed the Golan Heights a while ago. You've got East Jerusalem is more or less formally annexed now by Israel, and now they were going to start to...
Which Trump supported, by the way. He supported annexing the Golan Heights.
Encroach into Area Cs and formally annex that, because I think it's kind of the goal for Israel. And I think it was Qatar, I think that might have been the first ones to say this, but like, we need to talk and do something, because if this happens, it's going to be catastrophic. And then Kushner inserted himself into this process, and then we got the Abraham Accords out of that to delay essentially the annexation of the West Bank. But again, it was a cheap win without solving any actual problems, because the big stickler right now, at least in the Gulf states and in the Levant, is Palestine and Palestinians, and Trump got us no closer to any of that. Again, a cheap win, whether it's the Abraham Accords or the Doha talks of the Taliban, in exchange for an actual real solution, which would have been lasting peace solved for Afghanistan, or an actual deal that involved Palestinians. Donald Trump wanted neither of those, but man, we sure got a lot of really good stories and moving speeches about it.
But haven't you seen a Trump peace plan, bro?
It's a one word. I want the viewers and the listeners to note his choice of words, which is very telling. This man labeled October the 7th the result of frustrations. The murder of women and children and grandmothers is justified.
He is just virtue signaling. Awesome, dude.
As the result of frustrations.
Okay,
File that away.
You got your sentence in. I didn't mean it in a dismissive way. I'm just trying to make sure that you both have the right amount of time and being fair. So the one question I think that we ought to be thinking about in terms of the geopolitics side of things is, Donald Trump could be reelected or Joe Biden could be reelected. How do you think Joe Biden is going to improve the global situation? I think we all accept that the world is on fire in terms of everything that's going on. The conflict in Ukraine, the conflict in Israel and Gaza. If Joe Biden is reelected, what gives you hope that he's going to resolve these things in the way that you talked about, having some kind of long-term solution to these very complicated, difficult issues? How do you think he'll solve that?
When I think of the three hotbed spots right now, in my mind, I'm thinking China and Taiwan, I'm thinking Ukraine and Russia, and I'm thinking Israel and Palestine. I think of the three hotbed foreign policy things right now. When I look at Joe Biden's behavior for Ukraine, I feel like it was about as well as it could have been, in that we were able to gather a wide amount of support across Europe. We were able to energize our allies. We were able to add to our NATO roster. We were able to raise a lot of money and send stuff to Ukraine, while at the same time drawing like a very clear, like, listen, we're supporting them, but we're not going to have troops on the ground. We're not going to do no-fly zones. We're not going to do anything crazy. Nothing that's going to set us on some road, that we can't turn back from to go to World War III, but we're going to support them as much as we can, basically. I wish the support would be a little bit stronger. I understand the hesitation, though, in that they don't want Ukraine to be able to strike into Russia because there's concerns about escalatory stuff there. I wish the support was a bit stronger, but I think for the most part, I think Biden's handling of the Ukraine-Russia situation was
May I pause you just there? Because
it.
on that issue, I just my perspective is slightly different in that I understand the hesitation about offering more help, and it's a lot of money, and it doesn't enjoy as much domestic support as it did at the beginning of the conflict, etc. But I can tell you what's happening on the ground now is, even though these bills are very controversial in America and they're hard to pass, that $61 billion, it's not going to make any difference on the ground. Ukraine is losing. I'm sad to say this. I was a very keen advocate of us helping them. I don't know that I would agree with you that that strategy is going to be effective going forward. What I'm saying is, if the current way of dealing with that situation continues, what will happen is Ukraine will keep losing hundreds of thousands of men, as Russia will. Ukrainians will lose territory, and eventually they will get a worse deal than the one that they might have done a year ago when the Ukrainians made huge advantages, thanks to the weaponry and the support that the United States provided. So how do you think Joe Biden is likely to resolve that situation going forward? Because I will put it to you, what's happening now is not working.
Okay, I haven't heard the same, but maybe we talk to different people or see different things. I've got a lot of friends that go back and forth between the front lines, and I've heard there were huge complaints relating to amount of shells available or what they thought the support would look like. So, for instance, sometimes you can't advance, not because you don't have the weapons to advance, but once you advance, you don't think you have the supplies to maintain that advance.
Well, that is what's happened, right? They retook territory, and now they've been sliding back. Now, I'm not saying the artillery shells they're going to get now are going to make no difference, like in small situations, but on the big picture, it's not going to make any difference.
Well, we've got F-16s are supposed to be online, I think, by the end of this year, or maybe even in the next few months. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm not going to be delusional. Ukraine winning, I think, is still probably like a less than 50% chance thing of happening. And when I say win, I mean like at least take back Donetsk and Luhansk. But I think there's an important question to be asked about, like,
I don't understand how, like, it just doesn't get better for Russia. Like, I don't know, PPG, who's now been banned from Twitch, keep talking about this, how like Russia's on the verge of regaining a ton of territory in Ukraine. But like, I just don't understand. Like, Russia's been struggling for like a year now, and I'm supposed to believe that Russia is like about to make these like vast gains when they've been struggling for a year, and like they haven't. It's not like Russia's getting aid from the international community. Ukraine's getting aid, but Russia's still using their same fucking Soviet era bullshit. Yeah.
Who's to tell Ukraine not to fight? Like, if we have the ability to supply them with weapons, and if we want to stand by them for as long as they're willing to fight, doesn't that send an important message to, say, China, where we would say we would support Taiwan, or we would support them in whatever capacity that we feel is responsible until we feel like the fight is completely over, rather than like, well, we're a democracy, so if you can make the war last for a couple of years, it's probably going to be unpopular, and we're going to pull out, which is historically like a strength or a weakness that democracies kind of have. So I think that showing support for Ukraine is important in two ways. One is the moral way, that if they want to fight, they should be enabled to. It's funny, I hear foreign people express more concern over people dying in Ukraine in this war than I've ever heard Ukrainians express. Like, I'll hear people all over the world like, oh my God, these poor Ukrainians, they're dying. We need to stop supporting them. And then I hear Ukrainians say, we want to fight. Russia is taking our territory.
Look, my wife's Ukrainian, my mother's Ukrainian. I'm very concerned about Ukrainians dying because I have family and friends on the ground. Now, at the same time, I've always said from day one, as I think you both know, is that Ukraine needs the support that we were giving them to get the best possible deal, because they were always going to lose territory. So I guess what I'm saying is, how is this conflict going to come to the best possible end for the Ukrainians, which is what I care about, right, under Joe Biden? How is he going to, in your opinion, resolve that? Because throwing some artillery shells at them when they get desperate every now and again doesn't seem to me like the route to what we might want for them, and also for the interest of the West.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the path forward is to supply them as much as and as long as they're willing to fight. And then once it seems like the fight is done, or Ukrainians lose the will to fight, or it's basically positioned itself into a war where no gains are being made or lost, then at that point you look for some kind of off-ramp or some kind of peace deal. So Ukrainians would obviously
Telegram notification. I don't ever want a Telegram notification again. What the hell?
But I mean, that's basically all you can do. But I'm not sure. I don't know significantly more, I guess, what the U.S. could do in that case.
Well, I guess what American people, I imagine, would want to know is, like, if we vote for Joe Biden again, how is he going to make this problem go away? I guess that's how most people would just be thinking about this.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's not. I'm
going to ask him all the same questions.
No, yeah, I understand. Yeah. I don't think there's anything the U.S. president could just make it go away. We could tell Ukraine, like, well, stop fighting right now. But I mean,
what we could say to them is, look, we've come to the end of the road. There's clearly the domestic situation is such that we're not going to be able to give you much more. It's time to start looking for the deal.
Do you think is it the U.S.'s place to say that if Ukraine wants to continue to fight?
Well, the U.S.'s place is to decide whether the U.S. is going to provide weapons or not, and then Ukrainians can make their own decision.
But I'm saying, like, if Ukraine wants to fight, should we say, well, we don't want you to fight anymore, we're going to pull that?
No, what I think we're misunderstanding each other on is this. If the President of the United States was to say to the Ukrainians, we are not going to provide you with more weapons, the Ukrainians would then have a choice to make. They would not make the choice to keep fighting.
Yeah, of course. But that's what I'm asking, I guess, is it because we truly are making the choice for them, regardless, right? Like, if we continue to support them, we're at least enabling them to say yes or no. But if we say, okay, well, we're kind of pulling out, then you guys are done fighting. Like, is it the United States' place? If we have the opportunity and the means to help, should the United States say, we're done?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. So I guess
I don't think we should. I don't think Biden would.
So what I'm hearing from you is, if the United States votes for Joe Biden, he will continue to give them support at the level that he can muster in order that they can keep fighting or not, depending on what they want.
That would be my assumption. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see that changing.
And on this side of things, is there anything more you want to say before I go to Seb?
For Israel Palestine, I think that is an incredibly touchy issue. I don't think that Trump has the ability to.
No, focus on Biden. What would Biden do to solve that?
For Biden, I think that Biden has done a good job at providing support for an ally, which I think is always important because the United States seems to be seen as supporting people they say they'll support, while also trying to rein in Israel a bit. So I think we were saying that I don't know how true these conversations are, but as of recently, I think Biden was telling Israel that, like, if there's a huge rapid rate, if a bunch of people start dying, like, we're going to start to condition some of this military aid. I know that initially when they announced their invasion on the 7th, I think that we encourage them, like, you need to wait and chill for people to actually move out of northern Gaza before you guys start attacking. I know we've pressured them a lot to allow more humanitarian aid in. That Eretz crossing opening, I think, was a really good thing. The port, the humanitarian aid port that's being built by the United States, so the Navy Corps, Engineering Corps. I think that was a really good idea. I would hope to see more of that, but I also imagine that this conflict is probably going to be mostly done by election season. The Rafah invasion is happening, and then after that, I don't know what else there is to do in the Gaza Strip, but I feel like whatever that situation looks like afterwards, whether that's Israel occupying Gaza for some short period of time or whatever, I think it looks better under Biden, because I think Biden is more likely to tell Israel, like, hey, like, you're not going to start building settlements here, or hey, you're not going to do this or that, because he's already sanctioned some people in the West Bank who are building outposts. I think that Biden would have a better handle on controlling Ukraine there, rather than Trump, who I feel would give a little bit more unconditional support. Controlling Israel, I think. I don't know if I just said Ukraine.
Yeah, you meant Israel.
Yeah, okay.
Seb, if the people of the United States vote for President Trump in 2014, how is he? You said the world's on fire. 24. We're all getting everything wrong. Let's start again. If the people can't do it. If he
wins, if the good guy wins.
I'm neutral in this debate, Seb.
You just wrote a book on saving Western civilization.
I did. I'm not sure electing Donald Trump is the only way to do that. But if the people of the United States elect President Trump again to be their leader, you said the world is on fire. Yeah. How is he going to extinguish those fires and bring peace to the world?
Well, at the risk of talking about what I did in the White House, because they're just stories, but I think they matter historically.
Come on, be the bigger man. Come on.
I got this question asked all the time when we were there, saying, what's President Trump's national security stance? What's his foreign policy stance? What makes him different? And I just spent 2.5 years teaching the Marines at Quantico, and I just stole their motto. I said, under President Trump as Commander-in-Chief, no better friend, no worse enemy. And it's exactly what we did. The bad guys around the world were petrified. Good guys felt safe, whether it's Israel, the UK, NATO nations. They understood American leadership was back. With regards to specific conflicts...
Bro, he's actually never going to respond to, like, the thing that, like, Destiny mentioned, where, like, Iran literally struck Saudi Arabia and we did nothing about it.
President Trump has said what he's going to do in Ukraine. He will end the fighting very rapidly by, behind closed doors, saying to Zelensky, look, I know you want your country back, but you have to sit down and negotiate. It has to happen now, and I'll help you. And then he says to Vladimir Putin, the obverse of what you were positing. He says, you need to sit down now with Kiev, or the aid we have given already will be minuscule to what I'm going to give Zelensky.
May I pause you there?
Yes.
Because this is an important thing to tease out. That is one of the reasons that to me seems like a credible way of solving that conflict. I've said this from day one. Whoever does that deal has to go in with a carrot and a stick.
Correct.
How is Donald Trump going to go in there and make the claim that he will quadruple or 10x the aid that's already been given to Ukraine when half his own party basically supports Russia?
True.
I mean, that's an exaggeration. It's an unfair thing to say. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But that's not a public discussion. I very specifically said
no, but why would
doors.
Putin believe that threat?
Because he's made a measure of this man for 4 years. He understands that this isn't about bluff.
Because they all fear Donald Trump so much.
Will turn your chemical weapons base into a sheet of glass. If you're planning to kill 600 U.S. servicemen in the Middle East, we'll kill you with a drone as you're on your way to meet the puppet prime minister of Iraq. That's what we did to Qasem Soleimani.
I know, but
he knows the words mean something.
Yes, but I'm just saying, if Putin's thinking about it logically, which I believe he is, then he will say, look, Donald Trump is saying to me he's going to throw the kitchen sink and give everything Ukraine that they possibly could get. But at the same time, I see the internal divisions that we've talked about already. How is Donald Trump going to sell this to his own party when half of the people involved are really against helping Ukraine at all? And that seems to me like a not particularly credible threat, even if it's coming from Donald Trump.
But again, you're mixing open political communications with what is done behind closed doors.
I know,
diplomatic. He doesn't have to go to Congress and say, I'm about to tell Vlad this, and you better back me up. That's not how it works.
Yeah, let's just clarify this. What I'm saying is, let's say that they are sitting behind closed doors. Why would Vladimir Putin believe the threat if he knows that Donald Trump can't then go back and actually sell the 10x of support to his own people?
Because it's a risky bet to say, he can't communicate this to his base, and I'm not going to take him seriously. That's a very dangerous. I mean, did you watch the Victory Day parade yesterday in Moscow?
With one tank, yes, I did.
Not just one tank. It was one T-34, not even a T-80, right? During the Cold War, it was Scud missiles, it was ZS-324s, it was hundreds of tanks. One tank from the 1930s. I don't think he can risk hundreds of thousands of Russians on the off chance that, he may not get that support
the
from
off
Congress.
Chance, really?
I'm just going to bluff it.
With Biden as president, we couldn't get Ukraine aid for months because the fucking Freedom Caucus was blocking it.
Let me ask you a different way. Do you think it's credible to argue that Donald Trump could get the Republican Party to 10x support for Ukraine? You think he can sell that? You think he can?
Well, look, he wrote the art of the deal. The party is really big.
Do you remember fucking earlier in this debate where they were having the discussion where Trump wasn't able to get any fucking legislation passed despite the fact that he had higher margins in Congress than Biden does now? Oh my god. Dude, but he wrote the art of the deal, bro. Oh my god, he has amnesia. He forgot the first half of this discussion where they literally talked about this.
So whether it's China policy, it's going to be a very forthright, robust economic trade war with China. Whether it's the mullahs, it's going to be,
I don't even think Destiny. I don't even think Biden and Trump differ that much on China policy. Have I read this yet? I don't know. No, I have no clue what the fuck this is. No, I have no clue what this is. Anyway, I don't even know if Biden and Trump differ that much in China policy. But Biden's been pretty effective at getting deals negotiated with like the Philippines. Like I think we're building a base in the Philippines for the first time. Yeah, we've just got that bill passed that gave aid to Taiwan. I think Biden's been pretty effective in combating China, which this guy seems to like. And Biden has. I don't like the trade war with China, but Biden has basically continued the trade war with China. What is this link about? It's super fucking long. What the hell, dude? Wait, just give me like a summary and I'll decide when I can read it.
The swinging sanctions.
Oh, it's about kiwi. I don't care about kiwi farms. What the hell?
Regime we put in place that almost had the whole of the economy of the IRGC on its knees by the end of the Trump administration. With regards to NATO, we'll be back to what the current Secretary General Stoltenberg, who is a former left-wing prime minister and minister of the environment, said is absolutely what it should be, with increased spending and every member meeting its 2% of GDP target force goal. So if you want to know what it's going to be like, it'll be like the Trump administration the first time around, with the special addition of the deal with Vladimir Putin to scare him into negotiating. And then with regards to Israel, it's pretty obvious. This is the most philo-Semitic president since 1948 in the rebirth of Israel. And I expect President Trump to give Israel everything they need.
And how will he look to settle that issue long term? Because obviously that's an ongoing conflict.
Right.
It has been. I feel like the world has come to a point where everyone is horrified by what they're seeing, irrespective of what their political position is. The fact that conflict is happening is horrific, and it has reached horrific levels of mass killing. Right.
Right, but we also have people on U.S. campuses who are chanting from the river to the sea.
God.
So they may be horrified, but they're actually on the wrong side of that conflict. Look, with regards to the Middle East, we'll try and revivify the Abraham Accords. But with regards to Gaza, we have to be very blunt here. They have to kill every single terrorist responsible for October the 7th. But if you look at every poll, there's been 3 significant polls taken since October the 7th of Gazan residents. And between 72 and 78% of the residents support what happened on October the 7th. That is not something that is militarily soluble, right? you have an environment, you have a population that supports genocidal murder of women and children. I think the long-term solution, it's an un-American answer because it's not really a solution. We tend to think we can solve everything. It's a far more European one. Israel, after October the 7th, has to kill everyone responsible for that attack, and then they will be responsible for the security of Gaza for the foreseeable future. Not Hamas, not anybody else.
Israel.
Israel.
Do we then not go back to square one, where essentially Israel is living?
Yeah, I don't understand. Okay, I hope Destiny gets to respond to this because I don't know. Even Israel's own defense minister, who is like literally just charged with war crimes by the ICC, even he doesn't want Israel to maintain control over Gaza after the war. And he came out and said, "Hey, Netanyahu, please don't be a fucking dumbass. Please don't annex Gaza. Please, Netanyahu, please."
With a population who are being badly treated or feel that, let's just use neutral language, who feel that they're being very badly treated, they're oppressed, they're going to rise up against it, and we're just going to have more terrorism. And all of this horror is just going to continue.
Look,
I'm not saying I have a better answer, by the way.
But this was my thing for 20 years, was counterterrorism policy. Effective counterterrorism is about attacking two things. It's like any enemy, really. You have to attack their capability to hurt you, and you have to undermine their will to hurt you. The Israelis have been very good at the capability thing, right? We take out their chief bomb makers. We interdict their supply of arms from Iran and elsewhere. The question is the will thing. Will you create more terrorists? There's no really good solution to that. Why? Because the Arab states of the region don't want any Gazans. I mean, Egypt does not want any more Palestinians. Jordan is full of Palestinian quote-unquote refugees. If the Arab Muslim nations don't want that problem, Israel has to contain it. It's not neat, but it's the best thing they can do given the conditions that you have more than two-thirds of the population are pro-terrorism.
Well, gentlemen, we've had a great hour and a half. We've got one segment that we still have.
Kidding me? Destiny doesn't get to respond to that. Destiny should have been able to respond. God damn it. Okay. I don't know. I guess he got the last word, whatever.
Haven't covered, which is what's happening on US college campuses. I imagine you see that very differently. That ties into the election because of Biden and Trump and how they've.
I don't understand why he thinks an Israeli occupation of Gaza would address Palestinians' will to fight Israel. Dude, I can't believe it's so funny. It's so funny to me that he was like, the left is chanting from the river to the sea, and then literally in the next sentence quoted Sam Harris. Does he think Sam Harris is supporting from the river to the sea? He was using Sam Harris as an example of someone who is on the left. Does he think Sam Harris is quoting from the river to the sea? Does he think Destiny is quoting from the river to the sea? Oh, dude, that was insane to me.